That's what drives my passion, is to not be the one that is responsible for the team's failure. Like, just do your job, just block your guy.
Hi, my name is Jason Raznick, the CEO of Benzinga, and welcome to the Raz Report. As always, before we kick things off, I want to quickly tell you about what Benzinga is. Before I started Benzinga in 2010, there were very few places to get real-time information on financial markets. I thought it was unfair that Wall Street had access to this information before the average Joe investor. So I created Benzinga to level the playing field for you, the retail investor. Benzinga is for the people and by the people. Now, let's dive into the show. I'm truly pumped this week to have on the Raz Report, I'll say badass. I mean, a retired Navy SEAL turned astronaut, Chris Cassidy. We have Aaron Bree co-hosting. Aaron and me were just like, I mean, you're in the 0.0001%. How many astronauts have been Navy SEALs? That's actually my first question.
Oh, that's a great question. By the way, good to be with you guys. Thanks for sharing some time. And there's been three of us. Bill Shepard was the first one. I was the second one. And Johnny Kim is the third. He's active astronaut right now, and he'll fly in space for his first time late this year or early next year.
Wow. So that's crazy company. So when you were younger, so like in high school, middle school, did you know you wanted to be an astronaut? And then did you also know you wanted to be a Navy SEAL?
No to both of those. I was just looking for a way to pay for college, and that's what kind of turned me on to the military through, and then I got excited about the Naval Academy, and that's where I went. And while I was there, I learned about SEALs. And while I was in the SEAL teams, I learned it was possible to apply to be an astronaut, and all those things just kind of happened through the course of mentors and awareness and that sort of thing. But as a kid, no, I wanted to be Larry Bird.
Well, it's funny.
I wanted to be Isaiah Thomas. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's just funny because, a lot of kids do say they either want to be a professional athlete or an astronaut is also one of the things you hear the most kids say. So you actually, wanted to be an athlete like a lot of other kids and then ended up being an astronaut. So you joined you did your SEAL training after the Naval Academy?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. So I went to college at the Naval Academy. And while you're there, you do what's called service selection, where you figure out what you're going to do in the military once you graduate. Fly airplanes, submarines, surface ships, SEAL teams, EOD, Marine Corps. There's a bunch of different things, and that's what led me to the SEAL teams.
Got it. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the SEAL training. So I guess you went in then when you were probably like 22 or 23. We hear all about how Navy SEALs train and how hard it is to get through that program. Would you say it's harder mentally or physically?
It's a mental game, really, when you come down to it. They don't expect you to do on day one what they expect you physically to do on graduation day. So your body gets ramped up and you get stronger and stronger and used to the swimming and used to the obstacle course and used to running in sand. And our bodies physically are just very adaptable things, especially when you're in your young 20s. You're a rubber band. But it's the mental grind of day in, day out for 6+ months. You're starting at the crack of dawn and go until after dinner. And it's just a long grind. You can't get mired in, oh my God, we've only done 4 weeks and we've got, 5 more months to go. You'll never make it.
Did they teach you anything in terms of like, hey, you're going to feel like quitting and stopping, this is what you're going to do? Or is that kind of just on you to figure out, hey, how am I going to personally persevere through this adversity and run through the finish line?
It's largely on the individual person. Now, those kind of discussions happen amongst the class and your peers. You help each other out, and everybody's human. Doesn't matter if you've got the medal to be a SEAL or not. Everybody has strong weeks and bad weeks, and it's together. It's with your teammates. It's with your classmates that you get through your own lull with the pull and the support of the guys around. I say, hey, guys, it's all guys in my class. And then other times you give that support to someone else. I remember for me specifically, Wednesday night of Hell Week. Hell Week starts on Sunday and ends on Friday. So it's a big blur of stuff for a week. And Wednesday night, I was feeling kind of down in the dumps a little bit, not in a quitting way, but just sort of feeling sorry for myself. And a buddy of mine who was right next to me, he just put his hand on my elbow because he saw a distant stare, and he said, "Hey, you good?" And that's all it took. You're like, "Oh, okay, I'm right back with you, man. Yeah, let's get through this together." So
Yeah. One of those things, like to be a Navy SEAL, obviously a lot of determination, mental fortitude. Like, what did your parents, when you grew up? I'm a parent. I have 3 kids. I'm looking for parental advice. Like, did your parents help? Did your parents help instill this discipline? By the way, we're with Chris Cassidy, retired Navy SEAL, astronaut, and like this is just such an honor. I mean, there's I think 676 people that have been astronauts, and it's crazy. So yeah, any advice from a parental perspective that you could share, Chris?
oh, that's a great question. I'm a parent of 3 biological kids and two additional kids now, and I I don't have magic words, but when my parents were guiding me, I don't think they did anything special. They always encouraged me to stick through things. But I remember one job the first job, maybe the second job I had, was picking corn at this farm down the road from our house, and you had to be there at 5 in the morning. And all the kids were older than me, and I got picked on, and they put grease on my bike seat, and just all kind of goofy things. And I didn't want to do it anymore. But my mom and dad said, just stick it out to the end of the summer, and I'm glad I did. I don't think that particular thing was a formative moment in my life, but it made me realize, I can get through these little hard times, and those guys are the goofballs for picking on the 13-year-old,
Yeah.
not me.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, exactly. And was there like rules though in your house where you couldn't watch TV? You had to read a book a week or anything like that?
No, we were just normal. I have one brother, he's 3 years younger than me, and we like sports a lot. So we just always had a ball in our hand of some kind, of football, a tennis ball, a Nerf basketball. My poor mom had to deal with Nerf hoops on pretty much every door
Yep.
in the house.
Dribbling in the house.
So all kinds of stuff like that. So, and those days were different. There wasn't the internet, there wasn't gaming, and so we were just always playing some kind of game, or if it was too cold, we'd make up our own rules of some goofy game with a Nerf ball in the house.
Yeah. And when your Navy SEAL training, was that done in San Diego, like Coronado?
Yeah. Coronado Island, the Naval Amphibious Base there is where SEAL training is.
Okay, that's very cool. I've been there a few times, not to the training, but to the Del Coronado right over there.
Well, you're living a little posher than we are just a half a mile down the beach.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever thought about starting your own mini Navy SEAL thing, like training people, not to be Navy SEALs, but like fitness training? Like, how cool would it be, Aaron, to go like, I just got big into health this week. Literally, Wednesday of last week, I haven't worked out since my daughter's so 2 years ago. Wednesday of last week, I was insane. But how cool would it be to go train in a place like that the Navy SEAL owned and like had instructors that the Navy SEAL trained? Like,
I would do that. That would be cool.
Yeah, like have you ever thought of starting like
there's a few former and retired SEALs that do similar things, and they're great programs. You can get fit and enjoy the camaraderie that exists. Because I think when you go through tough times, a challenging event with somebody, that's why Tough Mudders and those kind of things are popular, because it bonds the group of people that does it together, and you conquer that thing for the Saturday that you do it. And
Got it.
Same thing with a mini pretend SEAL training.
Oh, so that's why the team environment is what you keep going at. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't think about that. I was thinking so individualized, but you don't want to let your teammate down or whatever. Like you're on the same team kind of thing.
Yeah, I mess that a lot, and for me, that's what drives my passion, is to not be the one that is responsible for the team's failure. Like, just do your job, just block your guy, just make your free throws, that kind of thing. Do your job.
That applies to companies. Like that should apply to companies more, in some respect. Like
absolutely does.
Have you written?
Do your work in your lane, help others. Of course, you can't just be so do your job, that you don't care about any other things. But that's what makes exceptional employees, where you do your job well, but you also see where assistance is needed somewhere else and lend a hand as you have the available time and bandwidth to do it.
Have you written any books?
No.
Can't, like, Navy SEAL turned astronaut. I mean, there's only going to be three of you, I guess. But weren't you in a subject of like a show or a movie or something? Like there was something, right?
Yeah. On my so I've done 3 space flights, and the last one in 2020, the Disney Channel, the Disney Network, followed our crew around for the 2 years pre-flight, and then we launched in COVID, and 3 of us were in space for the whole first 7 months of COVID, and the Disney program was made, and it was called Among the Stars, 6 episodes on Disney Plus Network.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So how was it seeing yourself on TV?
Kind of weird, and it's quite a process too. I don't know if you've ever been involved in filming, but the number of hours that they film ratio wise to what actually makes the show is ridiculous. So you think about filming for 2 years and then making 6 hours of program. There's so much filming involved. That's what blew me away.
Yeah, it's crazy. And they take a little clips for I know it is crazy, and they have all that stuff. Now, Aaron, do you want to go to the space questions? Because I have so many questions about being in space, but
I do. Well, one thing
before
Chris, you mentioned that your last flight was during COVID. I guess if you were worried about COVID, that's probably the safest place you can be, is up in space, not around a lot of people.
It was great. It was good living. It was just me and 2 Russian guys that were not on the planet. We launched right at the end of March, beginning of April of 2020, and then didn't come home until the end of October. So yeah, we were looking down at all that you guys were going through. Of course, we're talking to our friends and family and watching the news, so fully aware of what was going on. But we didn't have to live it ourselves until we got back in the late fall.
Yeah, you don't have to quarantine, but it's almost like a quarantine in its own sense, in the fact that you're like up there, with those same people the whole time.
Do you get bored up there?
If you get bored while you're in space, it's bad on you, man, because there's plenty of jobs to do in a technical sense, but then it just never gets old to look out the window and take pictures and float and just try goofy things with spinning tops and water blobs and see how
water blobs
behave.
That's sweet. You know what he's talking about, like how the water floats.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you're doing that stuff, like messing around with, coffee in a mug or something, like how much of it are you like, this is why this is happening and this gravitational effect, yada, yada, versus just being like, oh, wow, this is really cool to have fun with this stuff?
Well, all astronauts are different. We've got some that are really, really outstanding scientists and fun and make it fun. Don Pettit is one that comes to mind. He's fantastic at showing things and then explaining why. For me, I'm just a knuckle-dragging SEAL, so I just squirt blobs of coffee and then squirt fruit punch into it and see how they interact.
Yeah, that's how I would be, just having fun with this stuff, and then there'd probably be another astronaut that's trying to explain to me why this is happening, and I'm just like, no, this is fun.
But here, the question I've always wanted to ask the astronaut, and it's probably the dumbest question he's going to get, but I'm going to ask it. You guys get in the spaceship, okay? You take off. And then you go to a space station, right? Like when you were up in space, you go to like a space station that's already there, right? Right? Like
yeah, oh yeah, the International Space Station is going around the world every hour and a half. There's 6 people on it.
How the heck do you connect to it? Like how? Like how? I understand there's radars, but like I find it like Aaron was trying to parallel park at my house, and he like he has tire rash or hits the rim. And you can't even do that. Yeah. You guys go and connect with the space station going around the Earth. I don't even want to say the speed it's going around because I'll get that wrong. How does that happen? I think it's the most amazing thing in the history of the world.
Well, it blows me away too, because both the things are going 17,500 miles an hour, except the rendezvousing spaceship is going a little faster and stepping up in altitude bit by bit to then get to the same place. In simplistic terms, think about it like a quarterback throwing a football to a wide receiver. So the receiver is running a deep route, and the quarterback, he can throw a ball that lobs high, and then that gives the receiver some adjustment with his speed and direction, or the quarterback can throw a line drive dart where it has to be a perfect pass and the receiver needs to stay on the same speed and the same line. Otherwise, it's going to be miscalculated throw. And it's the same thing when we launch. If you, the shorter time to launch, the shorter time to rendezvous. So in the shuttle, we used to rendezvous to the station after 2.5 days. That extra time allowed us to have lots of wiggle room in the launch period and could make up for differences in speed that weren't predicted. And then we've since shortened rendezvous down in the case of Soyuz to 6 hours, which is like the line drive throw. And so it's an instantaneous launch window. You got to be very precise with the both vehicle speeds. And then it's just a matter of those two intersecting lines coming together. Now, I'm oversimplifying it because there's maneuvers that we have to do. And like you said, radar systems that give you exact, precise information. But at the end of the day, it's a football pass.
You got it. So it's a football pass. And my question to you is, did you ever see the movie The Martian?
Oh, yeah. Loved it.
Okay. So was that kind of accurate when they were trying to, meet, what's his name, at the end of the movie? And then she had to go out of the space station, get on that thing and go get him. And then, it was not going to meet, like the football pass analogy.
So that's a bit of a stretch, like especially if I remember right, he didn't have quite enough thrust in the gas tanks, and he poked a hole in the spacesuit to shoot him the last little bit.
Yep.
Imagine taking a balloon and blowing it up and then letting it go and trying to make it go precise and straight. It's not going to happen. But 99% of that movie was very technically accurate. That part was a little bit far-fetched, but
let's say that I guess my question on that is, okay, on that part, the balloon example thing, you're amazing at analogies, by the way. The football thing is unbelievable. So my question is, like, say you're going to meet the International Space Station and you're off by a little bit. Does it take then does it ever happen that you're off by a little bit and you have to do it again like a day later, or is it never like that?
It's not exactly like that. If you're off by, think of it like an error band. So you've got a couple degrees left and right where if you're beyond that, you're hopeless and never going to reach that, and you have to abort the whole entire mission and come back to Earth. So there's some band that you have to stay tight in to keep it possible. Once you go outside of there, you're screwed.
Okay. Yeah. And then my last question before Aaron goes in on this topic is, do you get scared, Chris? Like, I know you're a Navy SEAL, so like I said, I started the interview with badass. Do you get scared when you sit in that spaceship, when you sit in the space shuttle seat and it takes off with all those engines going and all that? Do you ever get scared or nervous?
Oh, I think if there's not a hint of not apprehension, just a hint of nerves going on in your brain on launch day, you don't fully appreciate the physics, the explosion that's going to happen momentarily underneath you. But we all take comfort in training and knowing that the engineers nobody wants to hurt anybody. So we take a risk balance very seriously. Now, at the end of the day, you manage all those risks you can, and bad stuff can still happen. So that's where it's like some part of it's out of your control. And then on my first spacewalk, when I opened the hatch and looked out and saw Earth down below me, and now you're crawling around the outside of the space station, that got my attention too. I was like, whoa, training doesn't prepare you for this view.
So the view,
but then you settle in quickly and get on with it.
So the view is amazing, but was that scary, the spacewalk, looking down and seeing Earth below you?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It definitely, my heart rate went up, and I just kind of was gripping the handrail super hard, not realizing how hard I was gripping it. There's a lot of technical things to this, but the spacesuit you need to have nice, consistent metabolic rate inside the spacesuit. Otherwise, you start using up the CO2 removal and using oxygen unnecessarily. So the more calm and just steady state you are inside, the better off. And so the ground can definitely tell when you're quote, freaking out because your heart rate goes crazy. The system is starting to respond to your higher respiratory rate and all these things. So they just tell you, settle down, settle down, settle down. And so you never want them to be telling you settle down. You always want to keep your own manhood to yourself, right?
Yep.
Well,
Totally.
I'm sure too, a lot of people in that scenario would then become aware that they're anxious or starting, and that can kind of make it worse. Did it help having like the Navy SEAL background? I mean, I'm sure they have like breathing techniques and stuff like that that might help when you are feeling, have that heightened sense of awareness that, oh my God, I am anxious and my heart rate's up, and then you're anxious about the heart rate being up, and now it's even worse.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily, I mean, Navy SEAL training definitely helped, but training in general, I think, is comforting because when you do something for the first time, think of a kindergarten, a very basic level, a kindergartner walking into the school for the very first day. They're super freaked out.
God,
But
so scary.
The parent comes back at lunchtime and the kid's like, have best friends in the world and they're totally dialed in. And that's with, when you experience things a few times, then it becomes less intimidating, less scary, and less frightful, just by the taking away the unknowns. And so training and preparation, specifically for spacewalks, we do it in a large pool in Houston, and you just revert back to training. And that's what we tell first-time spacewalkers: just pretend you're in the pool, and everything will be just fine. And it works.
The kid at kindergarten, that was another great analogy. He really
the guy
is. I mean, has anyone ever told you that before, that you have great analogies?
I don't know. No, but I'm glad they help because I'm a simple guy and I like to think of it in terms that we all can relate to.
Chris, to Aaron's point, I'm not joking. You're going to think I'm just like kissing butt, but I'm not. But Warren Buffett is the number one person at analogy. That's why he's so people can understand him, because he just makes things so simple. His analogies, I always talk about how amazing his analogies are. Your analogies remind me of like how Warren Buffett makes things so easy. I've never heard that football example, and that explains it so much.
Mine don't make me any money though.
You're right. That's a good point. I'm
So
trying to start the gym with you, man. Okay,
Yeah.
like Navy SEAL, the Chris Cassidy Navy SEAL gym.
So, Chris, I want to back up a little bit, I guess, from the transition to Navy SEAL to an astronaut. When you were in the Navy SEALs, were you thinking about what you wanted to do after service? Did you get recruited? I mean, how did this come about?
So when you go to the service academy, in my case, the Naval Academy, your obligated commitment is 5 years after graduation, where you pay back your education with service. And I thought I would just do 5 years and get out. But I really enjoyed those 5 years in the SEAL teams, and then I got accepted to graduate school, and the Navy was paying, so I just kind of stayed. And it was right then when I met Bill Shepard, who was the first SEAL to become an astronaut, when I was going to graduate school. And I realized, like, he also went to graduate school for engineering grad degree. He went to Naval Academy too. He applied to be an astronaut and he got selected. Why not me? Why don't I try? And I learned that he told me how you do it and who you call and where do you get the forms and that kind of X's and O's of applying. And so you're not recruited. NASA does not need to recruit anybody. They've got plenty of people that want to be an astronaut and send in applications. We hire astronauts about every 4 years, and it's a long process with paperwork at the beginning, and then you get an interview if you make it to that level, and where an interview is a week long, and you come to Houston, and it's mostly medical, but there's actual sit-down interview, and there's aptitude things, nuts and bolts, and computer testing that you have to go through, and simulated stressful situations and that kind of thing. And then we pick 10 to 15 people every 4 years.
That's insane. That's harder to be an astronaut than going to the Olympics every 4 years. And Aaron, you want to play in the Olympics for golf in 4 years. I don't think you have much of a shot. I know.
So if I don't make the Olympics, then I've got another 4 years to try
for the astronaut, and you have less of a shot at that. I mean, right? I mean, Chris, like yes, you were maybe like Navy SEAL school, maybe qualified, but was it kind of like a little bit of luck there too, like a lottery system almost?
Oh yeah, extreme luck, and just timing, and just to put it in perspective. I mentioned an interview is a week long. The medical clinic there in Houston can only handle about 20 people per week. So in order to interview 100, 120 people, they got to spread that over 5 or 6 weeks. And in my case, it was my year, it was 6 weeks of interviews. And I went for mine. And I remember thinking the other 19 people would be amazing selectees. And that's just 1 week of 5 other ones. And so I thought, well, this is a cool experience, but I don't have a prayer to get picked. And then I did. And I have no idea why they picked me. Even to this day, I don't know why me over somebody else that I was competing against. And then subsequently later in my career, I served as the chief astronaut for a couple years. And in that role, I was the co-chair of the selection board in 2017, I think. And it's so hard because you get down to that short list of 40 or 50 people, and how do you get to 10? It's just really hard. And it doesn't mean that the other 30 wouldn't have been good astronauts. You just got to make the decision. Okay. It's tough.
Was one of your favorite movies also the Tom Hanks one?
Gravity?
Apollo 13.
Apollo 13. Oh yeah, that's one of my real favorites. Yeah.
How realistic was that?
Oh, I think very realistic. And Jim Lovell is a fellow Naval Academy graduate and icon of our university. And I just love how his calm, level-headed leadership got them through that situation. Tough mission. Yeah, I love that.
I love that movie. I thought that movie was. Now I know these two movies probably you're going to say are not as realistic. Armageddon.
Yeah, that's a little goofier, but you know what show that's recent that I really like is For All Mankind. I don't know if you've seen that one. It's It's on Apple TV, I think. It's several seasons, and it's this twist where it's basically the real history of our space program. And this doesn't really spoil it for you because it comes right out in the first episode. But the Russians landed on the moon first.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Chris, I know we're kind of running up on time. Do you have a few extra minutes? Because I've got a few more questions about space. Yeah. All right, because I have some, I guess, sillier questions about space that, I mean, I got to ask you because I don't know when or if I'm ever going to get to speak to another astronaut before or again. Is it hard to go to the bathroom in space?
No, the need to go is the same. You just know you got to go. Number one, number two, it's the same. And number one is easy. We pee into a tube, and actually we reuse about 95% of that fluid and turns back into water. And the yucky stuff gets taken out in the filter, and then you're left with yesterday's coffee is today's water, and you can't tell. But number two, it goes into a can, and we just throw it away. So
got it.
Throw it away in the space, like the International Space Station, or
each canister holds depending on how many people are up there using the toilet, holds about a week worth of stuff, and then it's filled. And it's way nicer experience to be in day 1 and 2 of that can than as it's getting filled towards the end. And then we take that whole canister, seal it up, and put it in the trash, and then the trash gets disposed of in a cargo ship that burns up in the atmosphere. So next time you see a shooting star, think about what you're wishing on.
Okay. Another one. So when I was doing research for this, I saw a picture of you in space with a bald head, and I mean, you still got hair. You're a handsome guy. Why did you shave your head when you went to space?
Oh, it's interesting. So coming up to the space station that day was my Italian crewmate, Luca Parmitano. And he has a bald head, and he had, at the time, had this like Fu Manchu, thin Italian mustache. And he didn't know I was doing it. And I was growing the mustache. You can't really see the mustache too well in the pictures, but I was growing that for about a week. And then when I talked to them right before they launched, and I had my hair, and I knew I was going to cut it, and I cut it all off and shaved it as he was approaching. And then when they opened the hatch and he came floating in, I greeted him as this as his twin, and we got a good laugh about
I
it.
thought you were gonna give some like, oh, in space, your hair gets in the way, and there was some like scientific reason behind it, and it's just because you were playing a joke.
He was playing a
joke.
joke.
He's
like
love
you.
this guy.
I was playing a joke, and it is true. Like, it's way more convenient to not have hair up there. It's just easier.
Okay.
So, and I was going to be there for 6 months, so I knew it was going to grow back before I actually cared if I had hair.
Well, is that, and I hear this a lot about people in the service and the Army and whatnot, that like the sense of humor, people are playing jokes a lot, and you need to, because there's so many hard things that you deal with. Is it similar with astronauts? Have you found that astronauts typically have a pretty good sense of humor?
Yeah, I think of going to, again, here's another analogy for you. Think of going to space like going camping. If you're going camping with people that never smile, never laugh, never see the fun in any of it, they're not the people you want to go camping with. So, I mean, we're professional astronauts, and we're there to keep the space station running, keep it safe, make smart decisions, not hurt anybody or anything. So we're absolutely there to do that job, but you have to laugh. You have to have a sense of humor. You have to make funny jokes at dinner. Just to kind of keep it all real.
Okay, I have a quick question. SpaceX. What do you think? What do you think of SpaceX?
I think it's amazing. Yeah, the success of all the entities,
Blue Origin,
government and civilian, in space is all of our successes. So the success of those companies will allow NASA to focus its time and energy and resources on going to the moon again, and ultimately onto Mars. And I can't say enough good things about them. In fact, the commercial crew that just was with on the space station for a little over 2 weeks undocked yesterday, and will return to Earth here tomorrow morning.
Wow!
So that's called Axiom 3, the third Axiom mission, which is entire not a government mission, and they went to the space station for a visit.
Wow. Okay, and then now this is just more general. What advice would you give to individuals facing challenges who are pursuing their dreams?
Just do what you're passionate about, because when you do that, you're having fun, but then you're also do it well. And when you do things well, opportunities open up for you.
Okay.
And when you're having fun at the same time, it doesn't seem like work.
So whenever Jason travels, whenever he flies somewhere, he like sleeps for 2 days straight, because he's talking about he's so jet lagged and all this. Do you get like jet lag when you get back to Earth? What's the physical feeling like stepping, I guess, off the space shuttle when you're back on Earth after being up in space for a while?
It really doesn't. It's not because you were in space for a while. It's because we set Greenwich Mean Time, which is London time, basically, on our watches on board the space station. So you're basically living in Europe, on European time zone, and then you come back to Earth, and now you ultimately get back to Houston, and so you've got that sleep adjustment. And re-entry day is a long day. You're usually up for 18, 19, 20 hours. Wow. By the time it's all said and done. So you're just wiped out, and you have that jet lag thing to get over.
Why do you use that time zone?
Well, because we're talking to Houston, we're talking to Moscow, we're talking to Tokyo, we're talking to Munich, which is the European Space Agency's control center. And so we're talking to those people all around the world. So we need to pick one time zone to operate everything by. So the entire space station just runs off of GMT, Greenwich Mean Time.
Wow. They say that like the bodies of astronauts can get elongated in space. Like you grow a few inches taller. Have you like measured yourself? Have you tested that? Do you feel it physically?
Oh yeah. What happens is you grow in your spine, all the little gaps. And I'm not a doctor, so I'm probably oversimplifying this, but all the little gaps in your vertebrae, without the force of gravity smushing them down, stacked to their normal, they all separate a little. So you grow about 1.5 inches.
Wow, that's
from your hips to your
You were a little bit closer to Larry Bird then when you were up in space.
Yeah, my jump shot wasn't as good, but I was a little taller. Yeah.
All right. These are the last rapid fire questions. What's the best piece of advice you ever received?
If you think about quitting in SEAL training, don't do it unless you get to the chow hall. And it needs an asterisk, because who's going to quit in the dining hall when you got food, you got hot coffee, or nobody's yelling at you, good to go. So then you don't quit.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right. What do you do if you ever feel stressed or discouraged, or do you never feel stressed or discouraged?
I do. I'm human, and I like to ride on the Peloton or swim.
Okay. What was your most difficult challenge in life?
There was a time right before, so I was a SEAL platoon commander when 9/11 happened, and we were deploying to Afghanistan, and very soon after 9/11, and there was a particular person that I had been thinking about removing from the unit prior to 9/11, and then that happened, and I had to tell him that he wasn't coming with us, and that I had never had to do that before as a leader, and it was I lost a lot of sleep about
So
it.
you had to tell someone that they weren't coming on the mission with you.
Who was a fully qualified Navy SEAL, but he wasn't coming because he wasn't up to standards. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. And what was did you do missions all over the world, by the way? We never even got into that, but did you?
Prior to 9/11, so I became a SEAL in 1993. So several 7 or 8 years or whatever till 9/11 happened, and most of my deployments were in the Mediterranean area, working with the French and Spanish and other units. And then post 9/11, all of my time was in Afghanistan.
Wow. Okay. All right. Anything else in life you want to accomplish? Since you're a SEAL, astronaut.
I want to drive an RV around the country for several months.
I like that.
That sounds a little bit easier than becoming a Navy SEAL or astronaut.
Yes, and I know
we could probably help make that happen.
Yeah, I know
people like Camping World.
Oh, I know, I know. Camping World, but David Fardman has an RV. I mean, this is like, that's just one's probably a little easier than the. Is it? By the way, when you're up in space, do you cut your cell phone bill? Like, do you just like call them and say I'm going to be in space for like 6 months?
No, I just paid it. Yeah.
Figure,
Good question, though. I probably should have explored that a little bit.
You should have to pay taxes.
No,
he's in space. Like, he's not on the planet. Like, I don't know.
That's a good point. That's a good point. What about how does the legal? Are there any lawyers that specialize in space law?
Yeah, there's
things that happen out the.
Well, voting is always an interesting one, because you're a citizen and you should be able to vote, and military people deployed can vote by proxy or mail-in ballots, and so we can do that up there as well. But you know what the biggest challenge we found is two-factor identification, because anymore you could do all your banking from while you're up there because we can get to the internet, but now everything like a bank account requires you to get the little code on your phone, and that's where you're dead in the water.
Oh yeah, yep. All right, well,
I was going to say one. We have the two more rapid fire.
I was it. That's it.
Okay. Well, do you have any like super famous people in your phone? Like, are there any celebrities that are passionate about space travel that have reached out to you and said, would love to talk to you?
That's a good final question. That's a good one, Aaron.
No, but I'm my favorite contact in my phone is the. Okay.
Oh, look, he's blocking.
Can you read
it?
Oh
International
my
Space
God.
Station, the ISS, and he's blocking the number from it. So we can't. We would prank call them and I
know you would call.
Yeah. You would be all over that, Mr. Aaron, asking all about the pranks. You'd be all over that, Mr. Aaron Bree.
That's the best contact that we've seen on anyone's phone.
Yeah,
we've seen Michael Jordan, we've seen Steph Curry, all these, but that's the best one.
That one wins. All right, Chris Cassidy. I mean, goes from a Navy SEAL to astronaut to all around good guy. You can watch him in a Disney show. Maybe one day he'll write a book. I mean, at least for us parents trying to learn how to raise proper kids. I mean, I had no idea how hard it was to become an astronaut. I mean, I get the numbers are so low every 4 years. Like, I think it's so hard to make the Olympics. Becoming an astronaut is way harder than making the Olympics.
To me, the graduating from MIT, I think that'd be the hardest for me. I'd have no shot.
Well, becoming an astronaut is the So, well, anyways, Chris, thank you for coming on the Ravs Report with Aaron and I today. We learned a lot. Like I'm 45 years old. Some of these questions I asked about how it meets the space station. I've watched YouTube things, but no one ever explained it like he did. That football analogy, I'm going to use it now 100 times over. Like literally, I'm gonna.
I mean,
It's
he's
great.
great with analogies,
Yes.
among other things.
All right,
Obviously,
thank
Chris, thank you again very much. Enjoy the
Thanks,
rest of your
guys.
week. Hopefully, we'll chat soon.
Yep. Thank you.
Sounds good. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to the episode with Chris Cassidy. If you want to see more awesome interviews, go to razreport.com.